Now, when you talk of any given model in terms of measurement, resilience measurement, I think people tend to say what a given model is able to measure. And maybe it would be a better way to approach it to say what a given model is not able to measure. That will give a much better understanding of what you are talking about. For instance, in the case of FAO, we have an econometric model which is called RIMA. I mean, we say that maybe the RIMA model can answer maybe 30% or 40% of the questions that they say the resilience community is asking at the moment. But that is something that you have to be very straight about this. So on this basis, I would like to ask John Hoddinott again. I mean, what kind of aspect of resilience cannot really be suited for a quantitative method or as the one you were describing?
Okay, to answer that, I think the starting point is that in principle, across many levels of aggregation that we're interested in when we talk about, in particular, ex-ante resilience capacity, given various sources of quantitative data, it may in principle possible to construct indices across all these different levels. The worry with that, and I think it's one which is you allude to in your opening remarks in the question, is to what extent, in fact, those measures, in some sense, are actually capturing what is really important. So, many of you will know, for example, the English phrase or idiom that no man or person or woman is an island, that everyone, in some sense, is joined together in some way. And clearly, in the discussions we've had today and yesterday, one of the things that comes up very repeatedly in these discussions is the importance of context, not only of individual or household capacities, but also, for example, the capacities of communities to be resilient. And so in the course of that dialogue, people will say, for example, that communities which are cohesive are better able to respond to shocks and stressors. And now in principle, in fact, it's actually possible to measure cohesion, or to phrase it differently, fractionalization in a number of different ways. So we could think of that, for example, in terms of socioeconomic differentiation. We could think of it in terms of political or ethnic differentiation. And we could construct all sorts of measures based on that, which perhaps we could combine in some way. What those measures don't capture, for example, are the capacities of leaders to be able to work across those lines. Okay, that we know in some communities which might be divided politically or ethnically, there are people who can reach out across those different groups and actually create cohesion or create responses to shocks or stressors. Whereas in other observationally identical communities, in fact, such leadership is absent, and that fractionalization acts as a significant limitation in terms of people's or communities' abilities to respond to shocks. All of which is to say, is to go back to echo, I think, some of the remarks that Dan Maxwell was making in his response to your first question, is that we can measure some things quantitatively, we can be certainly very creative in the way we do so, but there's a real danger in assuming that if we measure it, it is important, and if we don't measure it, it's unimportant, when in fact some of the most important aspects of resilience may be ones which are not necessarily amenable to quantitative measurement.